Very few video game characters are as recognizable as Pac-Man. Ever since the 1980s, this yellow pizza with a missing slice captured the world by storm and has continued to provide many generations of gamers with fun and amazing games. One of my all-time favorite games from the Yellow Pizza is Pac-Man World 2, a 3D platformer that is, of course, the second in the World sub-series, released on GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. I had the GameCube version. This little game was fun as hell for me, due to the colorful and unique worlds, the awesome music, and the awesome gameplay mechanics. It was simple, but very effective. I managed to get my hands on Pac-Man World 3 sometime after, and while that game wasn't as awesome as World 2, it was still a hell of a time for me as well. But after that, I haven't seen many Pac-Man platformers for years, until Ghostly Adventures came out. Never played it, but looking at the footage, it looked so radically different to the Pac-Man World series, and I also heard that it wasn't really that great. So, that kind of sucks. I always wondered, though, why was there never a Pac-Man World 4? A strange question, you can say, but I always thought about it. Well, little did I know, at the time, there was going to be a new Pac-Man World game, but it got cancelled, and I want to talk about it. So, today on Beta Quest, to celebrate Pac-Man World 1's remaster coming soon, I will be talking about the cancelled Pac-Man World 4, or Pac-Man Next Gen as it was codenamed, but I'm going to call it World 4. To give some background, the Pac-Man World series is a sub-series of Pac-Man games that adapts the classic gameplay into the 3D platformer genre. It was an attempt by Namco to try and convert Pac-Man into not only a 3D game, but also a long-form video game experience, as the late 1990s and early 2000s not only saw the explosive rise and solidification of 3D gaming, but also saw arcade experiences temporarily fall out of favor due to the rise of home console and PC gaming, which favored long-form gaming over short and snappy experiences at that point. Pac-Man World 1 on PS1 was a successful attempt at converting the series into 3D, forming out of the ashes of a failed attempt at a 3D platformer conversion that we will get into in a later episode. It was also successful in converting Pac-Man into this long-form approach to gaming, and so sequels would inevitably come, with the very awesome Pac-Man World 2 and the somewhat underrated Pac-Man World 3. However, World 2 would not be that successful in Japan, and World 3 would not be released in the country at all, which will be relevant later. And after that game, the series would disappear and in some ways be replaced with the Ghostly Adventures series. However, sometime between 2009 and 2010, a concept trailer for a new Pac-Man World game on PS3 and Xbox 360 will be pitched to Bandai Namco, with said trailer being leaked to the public sometime in either the late 2010s or early 2020s, recorded by Pac-Man Party developer, I'm going to probably mispronounce his name, Atsushi Saito, and put on his website. Alongside the trailer, another Namco developer, Tim Tao, would share some concept art for this project, which revealed that the trailer and the artwork was tied to a new Pac-Man platformer game, codenamed Pac-Man Next Generation, with some confirmation that this was in fact a Pac-Man World concept, either as a Pac-Man World 4 or a reboot to the entire series. The concept trailer would begin with some tropical island where Pac-Man is eating some stuff, jumping around like a lunatic, and transforming into various things, presumably representing various gameplay mechanics, where you could transform Pac-Man into various forms to solve puzzles and stuff. We then see a close-up of Pac-Man with this very Ghostly Adventures-like design, but for some reason, Pac-Man's tongue is super animated. Yeah, I think they confused Pac-Man with Yoshi because the entire trailer seems to overemphasize his tongue. We then see Tongue Man engage in combat with blue crabs to get a melon, which causes him to transform when he eats it. Perhaps eating fruits granted Pac-Man different abilities and forms. Very interesting. The fighting here makes me think that they were going to maintain a combat focus from Pac-Man World 3, but perhaps it was going to be simplified a bit into something more like Sonic Adventure, with homing attacks and the bounce attack. Sounds good to me. Pac-Man skates into the cave only to be smashed by a giant enemy crab, which he then fights to receive this glass acorn, perhaps an important collectible for the game. Well, at least we know that this game would have been like a collectathon 3D platformer. I love those types of 3D platformers, He then chases the glass acorn onto some type of giant crossbow and slingshots his way to another island, which has a slide, and he uses his tongue to eat more stuff. Perhaps this is a linear 3D platformer like the other games? These could imply seamless level transitions, which would be cool. But then again, it could also be like your standard 3D platformer collectathon type thing with big environments. We don't know. It doesn't really say much. The scene then ends with Pac-Man landing in a chest of fruits. Obviously, this is his paradise, though I'm not really sure what I should be getting from this, but okay then. We are then shown some crystal mushroom place, where Pac-Man uses the powers of some disco ball or some tiny ball in a bubble, maybe? In order to transform into Skater Pac-Man to move around on some crystal discs. We then see some extreme sports, and the whole thing ends with Pac-Man fighting more enemy crabs, with the whole thing ending with Pac-Man getting some grapes. Alright. Turning our attention to the concept art, we can see Pac-Man's redesign more closely, and this is not great. I'm sorry, I don't really like this one. It's just too detailed, and I'm not a big fan of his eyes and mouth being like that, and he looks too soft. It's just too weird for me, He looks more like Egg Yolk Man or something. Whatever. These concepts show that Pac-Man could use various vehicles in order to do various tasks, such as eat things, presumably to get stuff out of the way of a path so he can get through, along with some combat stuff, which is cool. We also have a couple of enemies, such as the enemy crabs from earlier, as well as some new ghosts. These look cool, I won't lie. These seem to be collectibles. Perhaps Pac-Man had to rescue 6 souls who got trapped in these acorn thingies. And then we have some world designs, which remind me a lot of something from Rayman or Crash Bandicoot. In fact, the whole concept, including the trailer, reminds me a lot of Rayman and Crash Bandicoot. There is also a version of the concept trailer that incorporates footage from Pac-Man Party, which suggests a few things that we'll get into in a bit. But aside from that, minus the weird look of Pac-Man, this game seemed like it would have been awesome. Whatever happened to it? Well, no one really knows for sure, as the project was never really announced in any form to the public, only leaked online a decade after the fact, so nothing official was ever said about it. However, it's very clear that the game didn't really get that far into development, and was most likely rejected by Bandai Namco when it was pitched. But even then, all we can really do is speculate on why this game got cancelled or rejected, and I think I can guess why. I think it was a multitude of factors, but again, this is only speculation on my part. The first reason is that, considering that this was pitched in 2009 or 2010, this game would have likely been completed and released in the 2010s. Well, not likely, I'm pretty sure that would have happened. In which the 7th generation of gaming was in full swing, and the 8th generation was just around the corner. At that point in gaming history, the classical 3D platformer market pretty much crashed and burned, having suffered a violent death due to market oversaturation, as the 3D platformers were an extension of the mascot platformer boom from the early and mid 1990s, gamers experiencing major fatigue of the genre, developers moving on to bigger and better things like open world games, and a successful push by Sony and Microsoft to get games to grow up with their audience, in which platformers were viewed as kiddie and childish. This was primarily a situation that happened in the West, but not only that, 3D platformers are a harder sell in Japan compared to Western territories, for reasons that are best discussed in a separate video, with such hard selling being evident by Pac-Man World 2's sales failure in Japan, as I mentioned before, and Pac-Man World 3 not even being released there at all, probably because it wasn't worth it. For a business, there was practically no more market for a game like Pac-Man Next Gen / World 4, a game that would require millions of dollars from Bandai Namco to pull off properly. Sure, there was Ghostly Adventures a couple years later, but I think that was a different situation compared to what Pac-Man World 4 was supposed to be, which I think was more for general audiences and general gamers, like a big game compared to this very kid-focused game that Pac-Man Ghostly Adventures was. On top of that, the second reason is that Bandai Namco released Pac-Man Championship Edition sometime earlier on digital storefronts between 2007 to 2011, which proved to be a monstrous success for the company, all while being developed on smaller budgets. The digital market pretty much destroyed any need for arcade companies to have to convert their classic arcade franchises into long-form games, like they were forced to during the 5th and 6th generations of gaming. And they would only invest in these types of big projects if they felt the need to or desire to, rather than spend millions on risky experiments to make 8 to 10 hour conversions of arcade games which have a good chance of underperforming. Developers could just have small budgets to make flashed up versions of their classic games and sell that at a far more efficient price for customers and get higher profits in return. It sucks. But unfortunately for us, considering that this is a business we're talking about, that's a better way to do this stuff, tragically. Moving on from that, it's possible that the project was Raymanned, in that the game, originally a major platformer project, was converted into the simpler Pac-Man Party, especially since there is a version of the concept trailer with the Pac-Man Party intro, as well as the design of Pac-Man being very similar to his Pac-Man Party design, as well as the general aesthetic being similar. It could also be possible that the concept would be revisited and revised into Ghostly Adventures, due to that being a platformer with similar aesthetics and the Pac-Man Party design of Pac-Man, in that Ghostly Adventures is likely a simplified and cheaper version of Pac-Man World 4, or Next Gen. But again, we don't know for sure as to why this game was cancelled or what even happened to it, unless someone from Bandai Namco wants to comment on this. It could be any reason, really. All this is just speculation. But that was Pac-Man World 4 / Next Gen. It's honestly a shame that we didn't get another entry in the Pac-Man World series, as I love the Pac-Man World games, except one because I didn't play that one yet. And this one seemed like an awesome game, having a very Crash / Rayman style to it, which is awesome, and it looked like it would have been so fun to play. But alas, it was never meant to be. Oh well, at least we have the Pac-Man World 1 remaster. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully this will be the dawn of a new era for Pac-Man with more ambitious projects. But until then, this is K-Steel of BetaQuest signing out. I will see you all later. This was a Cobalt Steel video by MS Bernie. Like, comment, and subscribe if you liked what you saw. Until next time, see you all later.